Good afternoon, everybody who are online, and warm welcome this week's Aalto University's public lecture series. And as you know, the theme is the future of technology and Finland. I am sure that we are having a very interesting next approximately 2 hours, because our theme today is artificial intelligence. And I remember that I have read in many places, for example, that how artificial intelligence is being emphasized in the national strategies in the big superpowers like China, United States. And for example, President Putin from Russia has said that the one who will control AI will control the whole world. So we are really looking for the future. Well, not only for the future, but the current situation as well. What is happening in this artificial intelligence field? And I have to say that I have personally waited a lot these next 2 lectures, what we will have in this public lecture series today, because both of these lectures are top experts in this field. Very strongly internationally emphasized as well, and their expertise is well acknowledged also here in Finland as well as internationally. But before going to the lectures, let me remind our students. Juho will put to the chat the code which you have to put to the My Courses in order to show your presence. Yuri, you know that already, so Juho already put that code to the My Courses. And I think it has worked pretty well in the previous occasions, that when you have questions, comments, and please be active, share those questions and comments in chat. I will follow those, and then after each lecture I will ask and raise up some of those comments and questions to the lecturers. So we are having Antti Merilehto as well as Meeri Haataja lecturing today. Antti Merilehto is a top guy in many ways. He actually works at the moment as Chief Growth Officer in Houston Analytics. And after Antti's lecture, we will hear Meeri Haataja's lecture. And Meeri is a CEO and co-founder at Saidot. So Antti, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can loud and clear. How intelligent you feel today?
I feel pretty intelligent, but I feel very excited.
Excellent, excellent. Like I mentioned, I am also personally, and I know that there are a lot of people who have been waiting for your and Meeri's lecture today. Your topic today is artificial intelligence, a tool or a threat. Which one you prefer? Is it a tool or a threat?
If I have to choose one, I'll go with a tool. But like with any very efficient tool, we have to know how to use it. And at the end of the day, when we go to Meeri's part, also the ethics of a very scalable tool is important.
So you are working with artificial intelligence issues on daily basis. Tell us a little bit, what do you do?
It's problem solving. And like many of the examples that I'm going to share today, my context, the framework that I use is business. Many organizations, governments, municipalities can benefit from artificial intelligence, but all the examples that I'm using today are from business, because that's we have to start from the business problems and use AI as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one more question I have to ask you because there is a lot of discussion internationally ongoing at the moment concerning about the competition in artificial intelligence, how the big tech companies are putting billions of dollars or whatever currency they are using to develop artificial intelligence, how China, Russia, and many other nation states are competing to develop artificial intelligence. How we Finns are doing in this field?
I think Finland, we are in a good place. We're well positioned to utilize different AI and advanced analytics tools and solutions. But we have to remember, like, I'll give you one example, lahjoita puhetta. For those of you speaking Finnish, because it's a movement to collect Finnish language to train AI.
Yeah.
University of Helsinki, YLE, Vaki are part of those who are doing it. We're only 5 million people. Finding enough words that where the frequency is enough to train AI to help elderly people who come from the Turku area. Those of you who come from outside of Finland, the Turku dialect is difficult enough at itself, but when it's an elderly people and maybe not talking properly, if they are not feeling well, then finding the right data to teach that AI is difficult. So we're there. We have places where we're great players, and we have to remember that the resources are just vastly bigger with US and China.
Yes. Hey, very nice to have you here, Antti. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Antti Merilehto, and like Jarno said, I am the Chief Growth Officer at Houston Analytics. And today, I'm gonna look at artificial intelligence from the perspective how it is used in the real world today. And all of the examples that I'm gonna be using are from the real world. Not by no means are they some that I've been part of. Some of them are such, but it is to give you a picture of the scalability and also the needs that artificial intelligence has to be a proper tool. And Jarno, I'm very grateful that you invited me, and I have to say that I feel very nice. I feel very good to be here with Meeri, because I think these our lectures, our keynotes tie well together. With this, let's get moving. I like to think that we come from the real world, and that world is changing at a rapid pace. Go back 20 years and rest assured, for many of you, I know 20 years is a lifetime, like literally, and that's okay. But those of you who can remember back 20 years, if you ordered a coffee, then at Pulp Fiction, it was Winston Wolfe, lots of cream, lots of sugar, but for most of us, it was with milk, with sugar, or some sweetener. Now in this case, it was, the options were very, very limited. And now, if we want to look it up, how we're able to see the world in where the options are, you go from espresso, you go all the way to, latte macchiato, with soy milk, oat milk, and the options are vast. And it's a great example that demand is fragmented, but also in many ways it is polarized. I'll give you an example. Young people who do sports. We have a lot of people who do a lot of sports, and we have a lot of people who don't do any sports, and then some in between. But it is not like a nice bell curve, by no means. And this is what today's lecture is about. How do we understand our clients better? And what are the tools? Haha, tools. I'll take one for that. What are the tools that we can utilize or that can be utilized all over the world already today? Those of you who had the chance to hear me somewhere to talk about this, you might have seen the cherry Sprite example. Me and my wife, we lived in Boston for a couple of years. She was coaching, so we didn't have mutual time together at the evenings very often. When we did, we went to the cinema. And this is a typical AMC cinema with the Coca-Cola Freestyle machines. Those machines have 150 different types of flavors of soda, 150. And it's a touch screen. And on average, we're average. We take our Fanta and we go to see the next Tenet or whatever is the blockbuster, and we enjoy the movie and we're out. So the machine only serves us as the soda machine, which it is. For Coca-Cola Company, it is also a marketing intelligence machine because it is connected, and Coca-Cola is able to measure each and every cup, each of every blend. You know, if you want half Coke Zero, they'll have it and they'll know the mix. Teenagers are notorious. Whoever is hot on TikTok, they're gonna tell you what's the blend of the week or whatnot. But there was a significant party of people who mixed their own cherry Sprite. So they took Sprite and they took cherry Coke, like Dr. Pepper, if you will, and they mixed their own flavor. There were enough of these people that the data analytics team found out that this is a phenomenon. This is something we might want to test. They took the data and they went to the brand director of Sprite. And the initial response was, Sprite, it's always crystal clear. We're not gonna put some mud water into it. And they were like, okay, they're not see-through cups. No one is gonna see, but could we test? They tested, and eventually the 151st flavor was cherry Sprite. But now, this is a place where we can have data on the actual usage of soda. So by far the biggest channel is supermarket, hypermarket sales. But here we understand what kind of people, how do we know what kind of people? We know because we know that the soda is dispensed from 15 to 7 minutes roughly before the movie starts. And Hollywood creates great data sets. They don't do films that are great. They do films that are great and marketable for different segments of people. And so now we know what time are we looking at, what kind of people usually are coming to watch this movie. And we know which tastes, which blends they took. If we now add, let's say, beacon data, people who were at the premises, maybe they're part of the AMC loyalty program, or often in the United States, the cinemas are located separately from the mall because of the parking spots. So we know from the GPS location how long time people spend at the area. The point here being, artificial intelligence needs data. The more data sources we have, the clearer picture we have of what is taking place in the phenomena we're interested in, which in this case is customer behavior within sodas, within movie theaters, who are a representative sample of whatever we're looking at. Great. Often the question is, what is artificial intelligence? I tend to agree with it is something done by a machine that we would consider intelligent if done by a human being. So repetition, automation, not quite there, but if it's intelligent, then it is regarded as artificial intelligence. And let me tell you, I know that we have many academians here also in the stream. We could spend countless hours arguing on what is not artificial intelligence. When we're using machine learning, we're pretty sure we're using artificial intelligence. And It could be image recognition. It could be text to speech, speech to text, that or translation. It could be text analysis. All these services that are widely available from many cloud platforms, whether it's Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, Amazon AWS, IBM Cognitive Services, they're plentiful. But for our case, again, we're looking this with the scope of how do we use this as a tool to do business. I think this is one of the best ways of describing AI. Professor Goldfarb at the University of Toronto, U of T, is the diminishing cost of prediction, and that will be and is already transformational. We can take smaller and smaller business problems and help us getting the help from prediction. How is this going to impact one thing? How is it going to impact another thing? And then if I'm the one making the decision or my team, we can use all these recommendations, predictions to help us to make the best possible action. So what is the next best action? Very often this could be automated. Let's say you call your local insurance company and you get this, are you calling about accident? Are you calling about billing? And then if you talk your way through, you're there being part of you're subjected to artificial intelligence in voice recognition to be helped to a certain way. So these could be minor decisions. Do we guide this client to be part of the automated service, or are we looking into giving them time with a customer servant? And again, maybe I'll touch it upon here. Very often I hear the question, but if we're going to use AI, are we going to be just clones of like our competitors? The short answer is absolutely not. Each company has different data, different processes. Very often the culture is different. The risk-taking ability is different. Some want to do cost cutting with artificial intelligence, while others are going towards customer experience. These are very different ways. And again, we see artificial intelligence, advanced analytics as a tool. Very often talk about artificial intelligence goes into technology. And it is true that starting from the 50s, technology was a key player. We had many artificial intelligence winters where there were a lot of promises, but they didn't come true as we were looking, not enough data, not enough computational power, or it was too expensive. Today, it seems very different, partially because of the amount of data. All of us are creating a lot of data with our cell phones every day. There are CCTV cameras taking pictures. It's the amount of video that is being created in process industry is just vast. So a lot of data. Computational power, Moore's law, is cheaper than ever, and it looks to be cheaper in the days to come. And also, if we look at the libraries of machine learning algorithms that are being shared, it's going to be, they're renewing at such a pace, and because it is not a traditional good. I have a cup of tea. I like to have my honey tea when I'm giving a lecture. Tasty. If I would give my tea to you, in terms of tea, you would be winning. You have a tea, I don't. And obviously, and this feels like I'm talking to a 5-year-old, but we have to understand this, because trust me, not everybody who is making decisions on IT, on business, is fully aware that these are the reasons why artificial intelligence is at the position where we are today. It is because libraries are not only free, but if I let you use my library and I see how you use it, I understand how you use it, and I'll do some fixing to what we have here, everybody who is using it in the SaaS world is going to get a better experience, faster, whatever is the attributes that they're looking for. It's not about the technology, and yet at the same time it is. I've been asking this question many times from people who are deep in the tech end of artificial intelligence, and just to give us an estimate, how much of the existing production-ready capabilities are companies using? And if I suggest 20%, they blame me that I'm a crazy optimist. So if we look after Jeffrey Hinton and his group, their work, it is very often that it is us human beings and our ability to understand the scalability of AI, what can be done when utilizing the data correctly, that is the bottleneck. But let's go to the examples. Let's take a meat factory. And I understand dead animals might not be what you expect from artificial intelligence. And for that exact reason, I wanted to touch upon this. Think of the optimization of a slaughterhouse or a sausage maker. You have a certain demand that fluctuates based on, I think, day of the week, time of the month, is it fall, is it spring, so on and so forth. But you have recipes for certain products. You have what you want to have a certain type of ground beef or minced meat or whatever, but you can use multiple parts of the animal. Again, back in the day, this was done by the guy, the meat cutter, who was wearing the white hat, and he or she, they all already knew what to do. But now when we have hundreds and hundreds of dead animals coming, that's our supply, how do we optimize this? How do we do the raw material balance sheet? How do we optimize that we are within the recipes, but at the same time that very often we're aiming for the best profit? Is there something we want to freeze? Is our freezer full? Should we now put the better quality, the top quality beef to ground beef? And we have so many factors to be taken into account that it is impossible with a great human who loves Excel to do it in the optimal way. It could be a good result, but it is not optimal. I'll promise you that. I mentioned profit, and within business world, we are often looking at money. We are optimizing for best results, whether that is cash flow, lots of money coming in. If it's brick and mortar retail, we're looking at footfall. So how many people are coming into the store? That's no way euros or dollars, but very often it is a early predictor of how much cash is coming in. Might be that we want to be as profitable as possible. And these are the problems, the business problems, where customers are looking for help. So it is, when we're looking artificial intelligence, advanced analytics as a tool, we need to start from the business problem. And business problem could also be, City of Espoo did a while ago. How can we help those youth who are not attending school? How could we recognize them as early as possible and make intervention in the best possible way? That could be a business goal in this. We're not always talking about businesses. But within business, it's the ancient question, what keeps you awake at night? And there we need to find the right data to give you the right answer. What is the right answer? It depends. What is the right price for ice cold beer in this setting? If we're in the US, I would give you a guess. This is not a peer-reviewed guess, nor do I have artificial intelligence. It looks like a nice rooftop terrace. I would go with $12, and it's a lot because you can get a Pabst Blue Ribbon for $1 outside of a baseball game. But at this place, because of the brand of the hotel, because of the location, because of it's summertime, special prices, the right price for a ice cold beer might be 12. And it could be the exactly same beer that is being sold somewhere there up in the other cafeteria for $6. So how do we understand who is our client? What are their needs? What are their options? Talking about options. Now we went into Germany and we have the ICE at Deutsche Bahn. Again, let's stick with the same thing, a beer. If you want to have a beer and you are at the railway station, you have multiple options. You have places where you can go, out at the terrace, at the restaurant, you have multiple options. The moment you step into that train, your options are zero. Now, of course, we could charge 20 euros for a bottle of beer, but nobody would buy one. So finding the right balance, are we there to serve people? And allow me the example, but this is just to give you a picture. There are multiple people who are not willing to pay a dime, 0 euros for a beer, but think of a sandwich, think of juice, whatever you find precious on a certain situation. What is the right price? And it depends. If you step into that train, most probably you are part of trading machine because you are creating that data that Deutsche Bahn is using to estimate the traffic for the future. And this is something that I wanted to look upon. I'm claiming that it is impossible for human being living in our modern, I'm talking about Western societies, to be part of the society and not be training the machine. And there's a typo, bugger. You'll survive, I'll survive. If you go to the grocery store, supermarket, and you're not using your loyalty card, you're paying with cash that you went to pick up from the bank teller, not the ATM, but the actual bank. So you think that it is something that you're not training the machine, which I mean, whatever it is, if it's K or S in Finland, if it's Tesco, if it's Carrefour, Lidl, everybody's doing this. There is not a shopkeeper who knows what all of their customer want. So they have to use estimation. They have to use, they have limited space always. The space is always limited. So what products I'm gonna use? And this is a dear problem of ours, because estimating the local demand, it's a difficult problem, because we want to understand what is the local demand and here shoot it so that we're able to give the same products that people are looking for. And why are we doing this? Of course, we want happier customers. The shop owner wants happier customers, but at the same time, there's less waste where they are not throwing things to the trash because we know what's the local demand. And already when we're taking these goods to the store, there is less CO2. So it's better business, it's better for the planet. This is kind of if someone asks what we do at Houston Analytics, this is what we do. And so in this case, but you are part of the machine teaching data when you buy something. What products are bought together? And this is very interesting. And also, I admit it's a bit scary because also with the cell phone, you can't be out of the grid totally. But even though we have plenty of data, we don't always have, and now I'm talking from the customer perspective, the company that wants to estimate something, we don't have all the data. So artificial intelligence is about collaboration, borrowing data, buying data, loaning it, making exchange where we give all of our data to a data broker and we get the results, but I don't get your data. And for example, let's say we are looking at a high-class clothing store. The traditional Excel way of looking at things is to give it, minimize the cost. We want to use as little to personnel cost as possible. But the thing is it the best way? It's the cheapest, of course, but aren't salespeople there to sell? So if we have more salespeople, we would be selling more, and the cost of the salesperson would be a lot less than what he or she is selling. So in this case, what data do we need? We probably want to understand how we're doing, like how many customers are there coming this week or the next week, wherever we need to do. What are the labor laws? Is there, how many of our people need to have 40 hours or 37.5 hours per week? How many of them can come at a certain point? There are a lot of these rules and restrictions, and we have to understand these. And some of the data, the people operations or HR, they have to get it from other places to be able to give a prediction that for the month of November, this is how much people we want to have because this is the sales prediction. And let me tell you that sometimes the business analysts are just mind blown when HR is able to predict more precisely the sales. And it's not magic, it's just taking many pieces of data in together and understanding a phenomenon. But especially when we're looking, and I'm now focusing business to consumers companies, not business to business, because I think it's always easier to understand how business to consumer companies act, and I think it's more interesting. In this case, a few years ago, Anna Gulliksen in Finland published a recipe of avocado pasta, and suddenly it was everywhere. The demand for avocados skyrocketed. Is there ever an artificial intelligence algorithm that could have estimated that avocado pasta in Finland, in the Northern Hemisphere, there far in Europe, avocado pasta would be the thing for a year and a half? Probably not, because we don't have the data to teach it. So we always need to have data to teach it. And at this point, if you feel lonely and flabbergasted and there's a lot, don't. You're safe. We're good. There's nothing to worry. It is difficult, absolutely. But at the same time, we are finding tools to make tools more available than ever before. And I would say that one way of understanding is that you go to Kaggle or elsewhere, you download a data set and you start practicing. It might take you 20, 30 hours to get the basics, but it is really interesting once you get started. But today's companies are feeling like that. They feel that the universe is huge. And they're struggling not to make the proof of concepts like pilots, tests. There are enough pilots. But how to make it's scalable, how to make advanced analytics scalable so that it can be utilized not only as a pilot, but it can be brought to the grocery market. And this is what they're struggling. I wanted to take Starbucks as an example of the ways that they are using, because again, my thinking goes, everybody knows Starbucks, you can have many opinions of the company, but everybody knows them. That's why they're a great example. So a few of the ways that they are using artificial intelligence is they're predicting the price elasticity of products. Come before 11 and you get a morning latte for, I don't know, euro cheaper than normally. They're also, even if you're paying with cash, a few years ago, they gave you in the receipt a code that if you came back with that receipt to any Starbucks, you were able to get your drink cheaper. And it is, they are paying, the rebate they're giving you is their way of buying data that they could acquire in a very difficult way otherwise. Where are people who in Manhattan, New York, where do they go once they've visited this store? And without an app, which is now very handy because a big part of Starbucks business comes from the app, they're able to understand it. Workforce management, estimating when are customers there, because obviously we want people to be there to serve our customers when it's the busiest hours. And it could be, well, let's see, the weather, absolutely, day of the week, day of the month. Is there a basketball game or Major League Baseball game nearby? Is it the school day? Is it a day off? Whatnot? And all this can be put together. Also, they're using analytics to better their recipes. So they're using different flavor tastings in different places in the country. I'm making this up, but let's say people in LA they have more of a sweet tooth than people in the Midwest. I don't know, I'm making this up, but you can catch me there. The thing is with the machines, this is Michael Polanyi, and Michael Polanyi is closely related to me and to my life. I'm sharing something very personal. This is a bread making machine. In the 90s in Finland, bread making machines were, first they were everywhere, and then they were at the flea market everywhere. Well, my mother was one of those people who stick to her bread machine, and she's actually using one still today. I think this is now the 6th machine. So, but why I'm sharing this together with Michael Polanyi is that when the Matsushita who made bread machine, consumer bread machine, they couldn't get the dough to be the perfect amount of air that it would look like and feel like a bread. It was just this tiny, hard thing. So they went to the master baker in Japan and they asked, can you tell us? And he told how he did it. Okay, we don't understand. Can you tell? After he told, can you show? And he showed that it wasn't like a continuous motion, but it went like this. So he grabbed the air to the dough. And still today, bread machines are making the sound of round, 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 because only the faster movement makes it so that it gathers enough air and it makes a beautiful, tasty bread. But the master baker wasn't able to tell it because, as in the paradox of Polanyi, we know more than we can tell. Everything that comes out of our mouth is limited. It's a limited representation of how do I feel. I'm so excited that I'm sweating. But I cannot describe how I feel purely in a way that I feel. This is why AI has been struggling, because we cannot put all the rules. We cannot tell how do we act in a negotiation. How do we, what do we do? Why do we do what we do? It's called experience. It's no black magic there. But this is the reason why I see that we need machines to work together with humans. And at the same time, humans need machines. Because context, it is difficult for a machine to understand the context, but it's easy for human. And follow with me, stay with me here. You see a picture. People are making a toast. We see candles. It's a celebration. I didn't find a proper picture here, but in Finland, when you graduate from high school, you get your nice white hat, and then you toast. Most of people who are graduating from high school are 18 or older, and the legal age for drinking in Finland is 18, so it's okay to drink for those of our viewers or listeners who are from the US, just to paint you the picture. My wife is a coach for skaters who are between 18 and 17 and 24, I think, this year. So very often, few of the skaters have their graduation, and at the age of social media, alcohol and semi-professional sports is not a great mix. So everybody knows that you don't want to be, if you're, let's say you are drinking or you are within a group that is drinking, you don't want to share those when you're an athlete, and some of them have followership in Instagram. And they were asking my wife and the other coaches, is it okay to share a picture of toasting with your friends when you're graduating? And the coaches gave them, is it okay? What would not be okay? What is the context? And these late teen skaters really soon figured out that if you're wearing your white hat, a nice dress or a suit, and you're toasting, the context is you're drinking champagne or sparkling wine, you're celebrating, you are not booze drinking type of a thing. The picture that I found is this. I think they are celebrating, but I don't think they're in a graduation. It might be if they're Woodchuck Academy, but I mean, they seem to be having a great time, but this is their drinking. And again, purely neutral thing, drinking, have fun, stay safe. But for artificial intelligence, separating these two things, and I know that this is black and white and we have cues there, we have the candles, whatnot, but separating, understanding the context of these two pictures is immensely difficult. For humans, not so much. I want to challenge Yuval Noah Harari, who has been saying that many professions are being taken over by machine in the very near future. Not true, I'm saying. Let's say that these two people are having a negotiation, and there's a lot of backlight, where we have difficulties even here to see their facial expressions. But if the other one of them is an experienced negotiator, maybe member of the bar, so a lawyer, and has a lot of experience where people look, their micro facial expressions, whatnot, and you could say this person has experience. But if we would want to give machine the same experience, we would have to have 4K or 8K, very high definition picture of this person, good lights. But if we would put camera and lights, it wouldn't be the same situation. We're not able to gather the data to teach the machine of negotiations like this. So this is, and Yuval Noah Harari, all the best for you, great books. But at the same time, machines are not taking all the jobs. They're taking some jobs, but if you go to the local supermarket and there's automated cashier, it's automation and not artificial intelligence as such. I want to lead us to Meeri with case Brexit. I think everybody who is participating into decision-making should be interested in advanced analytics and artificial intelligence, and should know the basics. In this case, also us as citizens, active citizens, if we're looking now what has been taking place with Brexit, you can actually partially blame artificial intelligence. So in my mind, it is a threat, and I'll tell you how. This is a real ad published, I think, 2 years ago by the Brexit movement. The European Union wants to kill our cuppa. Learn more. And there's a blue fist with Euro stars crushing double-deckers and driving on the the other side, but whatever, Antti. This is a real ad, so is this. These are animals, not entertainment. Stop animal abuse of bullfighting. In the era of mass communication, you would have had these in TV, in newspapers, and whoever took the newspaper would read it. But it could be that I fancy my tea. This would be something that touches me, maybe not. If you would put this to a magazine that we know that are a lot of animal lovers, maybe so. The question is, how do we know what you do, what you like? And in this case, not in a legal or appropriate way. The following sequence, I've made it all this up. Thank you, Unsplash, for the pictures. We have David, we have Samuel, and we have Brianna. Perfect. They all like animals. So in the previous, our earlier world, probably animal lovers, let's show them this ad. But now, actually, because of their Facebook data that Cambridge Analytica used, to my understanding, in a way that was not appropriate way of using that data, we know that Labrador Retriever is one of the greatest dogs, by the way, a yellow lab, that's his favorite dog. And a Dachshund, perfect. And for Brianna, likes German Shepherds, very European dogs, so already suspicious. But in this case, in the modern days, if we have lazy advertisers or we don't have enough data, we just know that you like, we could show pictures of all of these in different surroundings. But when we are able to understand, based on your data, what you do on your on Chrome, Safari, whatever you use, combined with data that we get from the cookies, we're actually able to send each one of you, and this is what happened. We're talking about segment of one. It's not about wants to ban animal, but Sam, EU wants to ban yellow labs. The Brexit movement was able to touch us at a place, I'm an animal lover, and I would say that when an animal dies, it takes a bigger part of our heart occasionally than someone who is not close to us as a human. So this is a very soft spot. This is exactly what can be done with a tool called artificial intelligence, segmenting to the level of one person. Brianna E wants to ban German Shepherds. This is why it's a very powerful tool. It's a very scalable tool. And in the wrong hands, it could be a threat. And at this point, dear listeners, dear viewers, I couldn't be happier than to give the stage a dear friend of mine and a front runner in what she does on AI ethics, Meeri Haataja. My name is Antti Merilehto. Thank you so much. If there's any questions, happy to answer any of those. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Antti. Excellent presentation. And as always, you have excellent pictures as well. And I also always appreciate a lot that you are bringing the theory to practice. All these examples, what you gave, I think that gives us to the listeners a lot of like real life examples how AI is being used. And I have to say that when I was listening to you, especially two things came to my mind. First of all, I started once again to think about the role of the human in this development, as well as the role of the data ownership, which seems to be a pretty big issue. And the second point, what came to my mind, Antti, I have to ask you this. What keeps Antti Merilehto up during the night?
Right now, it is because we are in business. Houston Analytics is a consulting company creating tools and products. It keeps me awake at night, and in the times of uncertainty that we have with COVID-19, is to understand our customers better. Because unlike at Starbucks, where you have customers coming in and out all the time, B2B companies have less data. So it is challenging even for us as an analytics company to gather the data in a small market like Finland, where we're serving customers from Australia to US to different parts of the world. But at the same time, our main market has been in Finland. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is, we're still in our small area of business, we're still trying to be better at understanding our customers, because it's the customer who pays our salaries, and that's where the growth comes from.
Very good. Hey, one question from Carolina Meja Lopez. Antti, is it too conspirational to think that Brexit happened around the release of GDPR?
I don't know. I think I was pushing it already, taking dead animal carcasses and taking beer as an example at the Aalto University talk. I don't know. I think that it was more of a perfect storm, and it is happened at the right time. People were frustrated, but I don't think it's a conspiracy. If I can just quickly comment on Aniruda's question on
yes.
Considering behemoths like Facebook, Google, the GAFAM, Amazons, what are the check mechanisms that we have that can avoid misuse of data by AI, or can at least detect it? Great question. The game is rigged. Google knows more about me than anyone else, because I use like, depending on the tools that I use, if I'm a Safari user, if I'm Chrome, whatever browser, the browser knows so much about me that what I can say is that how I sleep my nights well in that case is I used to work for Google in the European headquarters in Dublin, and the people who were the guardians of the data, they were stone cold. Like, I was at sales, I was, hey, could we use this data to understand customers better to sell a certain way? And they were like, no. In my 2 years that I spent there, I don't think I ever got anything what I wanted. So again, if you want to ask, what does NSA have a backdoor? I don't know. Most probably they have, I don't know. But the thing is, as companies, I tend to trust that there's a lot of people who are guarding our data, but combining that data again changes the picture.
Hey, what would you say, Antti? I am thinking about our students here in Aalto University, but as well as all the other participants in this public lecture series. When I'm thinking about the development of the artificial intelligence, and when I'm listening to you once again, this is something that actually affects or will affect more or less whatever you are doing as your daily job. So what kind of skills would you encourage to listeners to get or obtain in order to increase this kind of understanding of the artificial intelligence?
I'm a constructivist in my view of learning.
Yeah.
That's where I come from the University of Helsinki. I graduated from Aalto, but I would say two things. Learn the basics. We have a great class, Elements of AI, with University of Helsinki, and it's not a business class. It's an academic class on artificial intelligence. It's in Finnish, it's in English, it's in multiple languages. Absolutely, if you haven't done it, do it. It's a great way to start. But then I suggest tinkering. Like, if you're interested in flowers, there's a classic data set that I've also done, the classification of 3 different types of orchids. Download the data set. Start a free account on any of the platforms that exist, and start trying to use, what do you need to do? And again, artificial intelligence, the elements of AI, 12 to 15 hours of your life. Tinkering, there's no upper limit. Like, you can just, but it doesn't matter if your hobby is into dogs or into sailing. You can have a lot of data, and to bring it close to you, so it's something that is important for you.
Yep.
So you learn it in a different mindset. That's my two ways of encouraging people to learn about data and artificial intelligence.
Excellent points. Hey, thank you very much, Antti. And if you have time, there's at least one question from Anna Pursiainen, and if you can answer the chat if you have time.
I'll answer it in the chat, and in the presentation there's my email, and feel free to link me on LinkedIn and ask questions. If I don't know, I'll know somebody who knows the answer.
Yes,
thank you so much.
I can tell the others as well that Antti is a very, very friendly guy. So if you have any questions and comments, sure, please send, for example, email to Antti. Thank you, Antti. And we are going forward. We have another excellent lecturer for this evening, Meeri Haataja. Can you hear me, Meeri?
Yes, I can hear you.
How are you doing?
Hi. I'm doing really great and really looking forward to and enjoyed Antti's presentation as always. So really happy to be here. It's getting darker, so let's see how are my lights in this room tackling with it. But the slides are open, like always visible, even though it would get dark.
I started to wonder, because I have known you as well as Antti for quite a long time, and you are always smiling, both of you. Is it something that when you are working with artificial intelligence, it keeps you smiling?
Yeah, there's so much work to do, and I think work makes people have, or like I really want to see it that way, that work, it's great to have an opportunity to do that kind of work that makes you happy. So really encouraging everyone to find that kind of work that keeps you smiling.
Excellent. And you work at the moment as CEO and co-founder at Saidot. Could you give us a short presentation what Saidot does?
Yeah, we are a 2 years old company. My background is in AI in large corporations, and today I will be talking about AI transparency. That's basically what I've been doing with Saidot these 2 years. So we are building technology to support large organizations, cities, governments in governing their AI. Focusing on the transparency. So yeah, I will be talking about something that I'm really passionate about.
Excellent. I remember it was something like 1.5 years ago, you and we visited Washington together, and we were privileged to go to the White House to discuss about these ethical AI issues. So very much once again, Meeri, waiting for your presentation, and very nice to have you here. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen first. Okay, and I really hope to keep this as conversational. So ask questions and give comments in the chat, and hopefully Jarno can raise those into discussion even in the middle of the presentation if something is really touching the topics that I will be covering here. So yeah, basically maybe like we already went through the introduction. So I always want to position myself in a way that my background is in AI and in large companies. I feel I know pretty well how companies are tackling these problems, and a couple of years ago, let's say 3 years ago, I sort of realized that there is this new thing, new concerns, new risks happening in this space, and they are very much related to growing influence of the AI in our societies. And while we are moving from the POC and pilot phases into actually having in production really important applications all over the place in different industries, we start to realize that actually we didn't recognize all the impacts that we are having with our applications. So that started to fascinate me, and I was actually started to think that this is something where we really need to focus on in order to find good ways to tackle this, because it's shaping how our societies will be working, and that's really important. So have been working very much in the space of AI ethics, AI responsibility. I like very concrete things, so that's also why we are building product for this space. Obviously, like trying to help also organizations in like seeing how to address very diverse problems in this space. But the core business for us is to build technology platform that enables transparency for different parties. So before getting actually started, I want to share one funny discussion from Twitter yesterday evening. It was a big day actually for us, and also for a couple of cities. There was one friend from Finland sharing in the evening, sharing a tweet from City of Amsterdam's launch of their public AI registry. And the tweet was something like, hey, this is something really cool, and like what Amsterdam is doing, and who would be the first city in Finland to like take this big step on the transparency and like publish their AI systems through the AI registry. And funny part was that that actually Helsinki also was launching their public AI register yesterday together with Amsterdam. So these were the two registers that were published, and there was a lot of discussion yesterday and also today regarding these major step in the public sector government organizations like towards transparency. And we have the honor obviously to be enabling all of this one. But I wanted to start by congratulating Helsinki for doing this and taking this bold step towards being transparent on AI, because it was acknowledged throughout the world, and too often we sort of forget to mention our work and look near when looking for something innovative in this space. So my title for the session was is what we should all know about the AI we use. And while I was preparing this, I was thinking that we need to start a little bit earlier than that. So let's first of all like discuss a little bit about why at all like anyone should be knowing how the AI systems that we use like how do they perform and work. So like why transparency as a theme. Transparency is sometimes referred to as the most cited AI ethics principle or AI principle. It's basically, if you, I know there are like many people who have been following very much like what is happening in the space of AI ethics and like AI policies, AI governance. You have been reading the EU Commission's papers, OECD's, like there are a lot of like powerful international organizations who have given statements on what needs to be done in the space of AI ethics, and basically all of these. Actually, there is a research on this one. 94% of these papers that have been published during the last couple of years in this space, they mention transparency as a principle that we need to have in place there. So that was the same outcome that I had for myself a few years ago, that transparency is something fundamental, and we need to really focus on that one as like if we want to secure good governance of AI. So let's start by discussing a little bit, and I've been showing the same slide where I already have the answers, but I tried to summarize sort of like a lot of discussion and papers around this topic. Why is it so important? So why why we should be discussing and should be discussing more, why we should be requiring transparency for the AI that impact in different ways our society. So first of all is the accountability. So without transparency, it's really hard to establish accountability. And that means that there is an organization and there are people in that organization who are taking responsibility of those applications, how they work, they develop it, they have the targets that they are driving with the system, but they also operate it and follow how is it performing when it's being used. More and more, they should be also following what are the impacts and sort of like unexpected impacts the system is having into the surroundings. So that's the first one. Basically, in order to have anyone accountable and be able to take responsibility over these systems, any people, they need to have the right level of transparency into what they are supposed to be accountable for. There is this concept of liability and legal liability also that is very much related to this one, and that's obviously something that that requires transparency as well. But I will talk about this accountability as a main driver over there. Secondly, why do we need transparency is for enabling faster problem solving or problem spotting and also for problem resolution. If you ask from people who are very experienced in open source space, and not like saying that AI transparency would be open source, like that's different concept, but openness in general, you would hear that one of the most important benefits of open source is that it enables you to spot the problems much faster that you might be able to do with your own resources only, and then also find good resolutions for those problems. And that same applies to AI when we're using AI in different socially impact or like impactful areas where like AI is used in a society, used in the context of people, groups of people, and there is a lot of uncertainties related to what are all the impacts, how we are influencing people through these applications. So that's one of the most important things to keep in mind why we need transparency. And lastly, or like a third big theme is obviously something that has been embraced and focused a lot through GDPR in EU, but basically it's transparency is needed for every individual who is impacted by these systems to have a choice and possibility to protect their own rights. That sounds a little bit like official, or I don't know how should I, like, what would be the more relaxed terms for describing this? Like, sounds like we would be talking about or like reading from legal or regulation books, this one, but it's always like very practical when you think about applications that actually impact your opportunities and choices. So it's important to be able to have just decisions, and also have means to protect your own interest in those situations. So these are the targets that why we're talking about transparency. Why is it so cited principle is that without transparency, we cannot basically realize these targets that are very important for good, well-governed and responsible AI. Okay, let's move on then from these sort of targets into who needs transparency when we want to achieve these targets that we just discussed about. So keeping the list of the targets there to be systematic in our approach, and then basically assigning different kinds of roles where like each one of us in this group can probably at least relate ourselves to the last one of these, but many of us work in different other roles as well. So accountability, that's the question and problem of the business owners typically. So these are the people who are called to the room when the platform is burning. They are called to discuss with the Congress when there are like big uncertainties regarding technology and so forth. They need to have the confidence that they know enough so that they're able to handle possible risks that realize in relation to how the systems work and so forth. So, and this is super important group also because they are empowering all the rest of these, or either empowering or not empowering the rest of these groups to be able to work and support responsible use of AI. The second is absolutely interesting, and one of my main messages here is that I feel that we are in a situation in the phase of technology development that we need to embrace this group more. So the faster problem solving and whole the people who are doing this one are the ones, basically the idea that if we develop AI systems, it's typically, especially if we talk about Finland, it's typically a team of maximum few persons in most of the companies. It can be a very lonely place to develop AI systems. Like you're there alone or with your couple colleagues and like basically do your best in that one. So when we are now like talking about having these influential applications, it's really important for us to recognize this as an opportunity that the better we are able to involve people from outside that team within our own organization, or the more influential the system, the more we should also invite people from outside our own organization to the discussion and basically have this kind of issue spotter oversight roles to help the team in faster identification of possible risks and concerns, and then finding good solutions to address those. The target is to be able to minimize the damage that bad solutions can lead to. There are a lot of different kinds of sort of upcoming roles in this one. So it might be many large companies are, for example, establishing this kind of oversight boards for technology and AI space. This many like TikTok and this kind of social media companies, they have their content oversight boards, but also for the AI space, many companies are like formally establishing this kind of roles, which are sort of internal or semi-internal reviewers to support in spotting issues and problems. We are seeing certification providers to act in this space. I'm also myself involved in developing AI ethics-related certifications with IEEE. So there will be certifications and independent third parties who are able to act in this kind of role through their independent reviewer role. But increasingly, I would say that also citizen activists, and this is something that I would love to leave, or sort of, I'm fascinated by an idea that in Finland we could find new ways of involving citizens and like those people who have the background that can be very beneficial, especially in the public sector, government uses of AI. How could we leverage that sort of like crowdsourcing of issue spotting and oversight from the citizens, from everyone? So that's something that this is just like how I see where the world is going, but I see that there is a strong need for this kind of new ways of addressing that one, and it's also a great opportunity for many organizations to get help in this manner. And finally, obviously every one of us, like as users of these algorithmic systems, the people who are impacted by these systems are the ones who need to be having the transparency on the right level to be able to protect their own rights. So that applies to us all. So at this point, I would like to recap. Next, we will go into what we actually need to know and what was the topic of my session. But to recap, what we have been discussing now before that is why we actually need to be discussing about transparency. It's the most cited AI principle covered in basically almost all influential papers in this space. We need transparency for business owners to be able to hold accountability and liability. We need transparency for issue spotters and oversights to be able to help us in quick problem solving. And we need it for us all as users and citizens, consumers, to protect our rights and giving us choice and be able to build trust between the users and the organization. So by this, I believe that it's very clear that the requirements regarding what we should know are actually also very diverse, depending on the group, what we're talking about here. While going there, maybe the second main point in my presentation, I would like to sort of through this when going into what we need to know is that obviously like every one of us as a user and citizen need to know enough for us to be able to protect our rights. But secondly, I would actually add to that one that what we need to know is also that we have the confidence that the other groups that we have been discussing here have the right information for being able to act based on their roles as an issue spotter or business owner in the organization. Because this basically responsible, well-governed AI requires that we have mechanisms for all of these different roles act properly. And I think there was a question regarding social media and like the problems with the big tech on this space. I think one of the challenges that we have, and that's probably something where we need to focus when thinking about the future regulation as well in this space. GDPR protects pretty nicely the rights of the individuals and the right to know regarding how automated decision making is influencing me and so forth. But less we have focus on how to empower the wider community of these issue spotters and oversights for them to be able to perform their work. And as we grow in the complexity, I think it's coming critical for us to secure that as well. So let's try to make sure that we have enough information, not only as citizens, but we make sure that that also the other groups are empowered to do what they are supposed to, what they need to know in order to be able to help in guaranteeing, making sure that the risks are known and well handled. So then going into what actually needs to be known. So this is something that I just wanted to show briefly. I will share you in the end one link where you will find a white paper that we together with Helsinki and Amsterdam wrote down, sort of like describing in detail or more detail the rationale regarding what kind of transparency, what are the things that we are asking government organizations to address. And even though the work that we have been doing now has been focused very much on the government organizations, I must say this all applies to private companies as well. You don't need to necessarily open everything for the wide public in the same way as in government organizations, but the same themes are definitely something that the business owners and the oversights of private companies need to have in place as well. So what we have really tried to do here is basically build a metadata model for this AI transparency, synthesizing a lot of research on AI transparency, what information needs to be in place for proper transparency from different aspects, and sort of giving a structure for that one. So the aim has been to be able to help organizations to move from trying to figure out what do we need to do and what do we need to know, into actually starting to change their way of developing, change the processes in a systematic way. So we really want to provide this and hope that if there are especially anyone working in the government sector, there are now a lot of assets that you can take directly into use, because we know that there is a lot of work in actually shaping the way of your teams are working and documenting and taking care of these in practice. So let's focus on that one. Just very quickly going through the different areas. Obviously, like always, we need to be very clear regarding the purpose. What are the targets that we are driving with this system? How are we measuring those targets, or like the success of the system, and in what use cases we aim to use this system? Who are the impacted people? So these are all the like basic things that apply and are very relevant to all the possible impacted users. We need to make it proactively available for everyone. The second, absolutely important for everyone to have in place is this accountability, and basically this is something that takes time to actually implement in the organizations. Most of the teams don't have it very clear, like assignments regarding who owns this system, who is the technical owner. Do we even know like who are all the suppliers who are involved, whose technology we are using here? So try to make a little bit more structure into how you address accountability, and that's what we try to encourage with this one. Antti talked about the data sets, that like how important it's a bloodline of all of these systems. So we want to know and like be structured regarding what data sets are being used for the system. Also like who sort of controls these data sets. Data processing is the algorithm itself, or the model, and like the parameters, their features, what we are using. We address that, or encourage to address that, through model architecture that describes the whole process of like how the algorithm is comprised. Like typically, it's a combination of different algorithms working together. So putting that down, how performance is measured in this context, features, source code. That's the short list for the data processing. Then we come into more like or like less technical parts of the questions. Well, yeah, to some extent. Non-discrimination, that's about the whole discussion around bias, algorithmic bias. How do we prevent non-discrimination and harmful biases in that context? There is no one solution for this one, so it's really important to sort of recognize that you always need to think it in the system context, and also need to be able to describe how you interpret, for example, bias in this context. Human oversight is about embracing the need for humans to have control, or at least keep humans in the loop in the system context, not only in the development but operations as well. So this is something that is important to have on your agenda. Understand how that is ensured, and also what are the necessary competencies from those people who are performing in this role. And final risks and limitations. Actually, one thing that I right now when I'm talking about this one, what is missing from this one is called explainability, and that's referring namely to the possibility to to describe for, like, for example, in an automated decision-making system context, answer to questions that, like, why did I get this specific decision that I got from this algorithm? So that's also like very important, especially in the automated decision-making context, and you will find that from the white paper as well. Okay, let me see, how much do I have still time? Yeah, I actually wanted to mention that privacy and then information security related things, those are also like very important. There are established ways of working actually for those in most of the companies and government organizations as well. So we are listing those under the references. So information and system governance, absolutely important, as well as privacy impact assessments and so forth. So hopefully I've been able to give you this like big picture about all the things that we are talking about when touching the concept of transparency and what kind of information we need to make available either through documentation or different technical reports regarding how the systems work. Then just like very briefly before concluding this session, the next question when we have that right information is obviously like how to deliver that information. These are like many times it can be very technical information, and like usability of the information is super important, but also like very challenging. We have been actually doing some user research regarding these cities of let me see if I can share. Yeah, cities of Helsinki and Amsterdam AI registers, and it's a very fascinating question to what kind of information and to what level of detail we should be able to provide that information when targeting that for wide citizen audiences. Please take a look at here. Like this tries to be some sort of a good compromise regarding the like having some technical information, but not to overwhelm the users, and having this kind of layered model for allowing people to dive into that level that they are comfortable with. But these public AI registers, basically websites, access to this register information, that's only one way to provide that information. I think it's very relevant today for the public organizations, but why I wanted to show this picture is to just like open your eyes for that there will be increasingly this kind of transparency features in the algorithmic applications. And if you're developing applications that are like essentially algorithmic recommendation systems or somehow driven by AI, this is something that I encourage you to start thinking how to implement those transparency features within your system. So that means that from a chatbot, you should be able to ask who are you, basically, who is this chatbot, like who owns you and how does it work? And then same applies to different recommendation systems. In some of the big tech recommendation systems, you already have some of these, especially in the advertising space. But I believe that will be definitely coming with larger scale to all kinds of applications. What is maybe one of the last things that I want to highlight here is that when providing transparency, we should never think about that as one directional, only from the like company or government organization to the audiences. We should always strive to have it two directional. So we want to tell how things work in order to get feedback, in order to be able to develop it further, fix our problems, and also like sort of reinforce the algorithms to be able to serve our users better. So in a way, you can also see explainability and how we want to address that, and like really fascinated about concepting new ways for actually building new kinds of interactions with the consumers, with the users of your applications, and actually establishing a means for really interaction and getting consumer direct feedback. One practical example is we've been using now, like everyone probably during the COVID-19, this e-commerce grocery store, basically buying grocery store stuff from the online shops, and that's one place where you come across with a lot of recommendations, and then you see a lot of spaces to improve those recommendations. So that's something that I really would like to see retailers to take this opportunity, share how they are doing the recommendations, and then also establish a way to reinforce, train the recommendation algorithm to act better for me and everyone else. Okay, so we've gone through pretty much everything that I was wanted to prepare for that. So like finally sort of recap and key takeaways from the session. When we're talking about AI ethics and AI responsibility, AI governance, all of these terms which are really interconnected, transparency is one of the most important things to focus in trustworthy AI. We need to make sure that the individuals themselves have what they need to be able to protect their rights in using algorithms or algorithmic systems, but also collectively, us all together, we need to ensure that all these different three roles that we discussed over this session have what they need to secure trustworthy AI. I think we should challenge ourselves, and especially this is my call for everyone in Finland and contributing to this area. Let's find really good ways for how to empower the democratic oversight, especially for the public sector government use cases. How can we provide this helpful issue spotting and also problem solving capabilities for our partners in the government segment? So that should make the AI we interact with much better, much faster if we manage to do that one. And then finally, let's not make transparency one directional. Let's use the opportunity to actually involve people. That participation is what we actually are looking for when implementing transparency. So it has a potential actually also to change a lot how you're feeding your algorithms and how you're working in the AI team. So let's focus on the participation over there. And especially for the government, possible audience from the government segment, I really hope that you will leverage the work that we have been doing with now in Finland and Netherlands with the cities of Helsinki and Amsterdam, and take those concepts into use and approaches that have been tested and validated to some extent, and now they are live there. So also as users and citizens, please take a look and give your feedback, because that's our society. Those are our societies, and our feedback is super important for making it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Meeri. Excellent points, and I am sure that everybody who listened to you has many thoughts in their heads at the moment. But hey, if that is okay for you, few questions, and I start with Violetta Brodsky's question. So the question is, as Finland's population is aging, how do you get the data from elderly where there are some cases that required it, and by which tools? And I think this is a pretty good question, how we are able to collect the data from a little bit elder people.
Yeah, I would first like to ask that is there an expert in the audience who could like help us answer this question, because yeah, it's definitely a specific area. Overall, the whole data collection in the space of healthcare and or like, I don't know, is this talking about healthcare? Probably not only, but like elderly people overall. I would say that I don't know, like, does there need to be that much different? Because like the best we should not be forced to make that much effort in providing data. So I think it applies to like whatever the age of the user groups. We should strive to find ways for user-friendly ways of data collection, and that requires minimum input from the users. But then again, when we are talking about elderly people, and especially if we are talking about sort of like care situations where there are a lot of aspects that we need to take care of when thinking about what kind of data and like how to collect data from these groups. So but I don't know, like I don't necessarily see it as a age matter, but are there some thoughts or opinions from other ones in this group?
Hey, if there are, please add them to chat. Another very good question from Ella Pingham. How do you draw the line on which digital systems need to provide transparency and which do not? Is there a definition of an AI system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Antti defined AI system, or like AI, and like he also mentioned that like, or I don't remember the exact words, but that we could spend this whole series of lectures in defining AI, and probably we couldn't find an answer that we're all satisfied with. For the registers, we actually we tried to work on our definition on that one, but how I see this one is that it's a question of the organization who is providing these services. And they need to do that, draw the line on where they find that it's essential for them, in order to retain trust with the users. So there are like different, and there will be legal definitions for that. We might have different regulation for automated decision-making systems, which might require like stronger transparency and so forth. But at this point, I would say that like what is driving the decision whether or not you should have that is that those are typically data-driven systems where algorithms, machine learning are used by, but the main question is that what kind of impact, influence you are having with that? Are you interacting with consumers? And do you as an organization, business owner, feel that it's essential, it's needed for keeping or retaining and establishing trust with the users, between the users and yourself? Probably we will have answers and like more concrete regulation coming up for different sectors where it's more required than some others. But at the moment, the driving force for organizations who are taking concrete steps is that they find that some of their systems are that influential and have the trust question in the equation, and they want to address that with transparency.
Very good point. And actually, we are having next week one lecture concentrating on this trust theme in the development of technology. That's very, very important. Do you think, Meeri, that we are enough like thinking about these ethical aspects of not only AI but this technological development when we are more or less turning to the world where we are not asking primarily that what we can do with the technology, instead of we should ask what we should do with the technology, which actually refers very strongly to the ethical choices what we have to make with the technology. Does that mean that, for example, in Aalto University, where we have a lot of technical orientated students, engineers, that we should actually be teaching them a little bit more like the human sciences?
Mm-hmm. Or then involve the people from those sciences like into your conversations.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this and the question to Antti, that like what should everyone learn about or how to address this AI and how to teach themselves or learn about these topics. The more I think about this, the more I recognize that it's obviously like very important for us also educate and like keep on learning these new aspects, and especially the aspects that are raising concerns and maybe aspects that we haven't really been thinking about like almost all earlier. But also at the same time acknowledge that those are like their own sciences. There are like experts in those areas, and let's not try to become experts in all of those areas. The key is there, in my opinion, to have the networks of the people who can support you by bringing on table so that we don't have only the technical aspect. We also know the like exactly the when developing for the like healthcare applications, we need to know deeply the care context and the problems of that, like and how to solve those. We need that care expertise, but also then what comes to ethics, let's involve those social scientists and the people who can support us in this space. So I think we are actually living this situation, what we have been talking for years, that there are new roles in AI coming and like, new opportunities. We might be losing some jobs, but also like new roles appear. So I think we are living that right now. We need to just like empower those people, and they take those people into conversation who can help us fill those gaps that we might have.
Yes. Hey, it's almost 7 p.m., but I am taking one more question. Or Carolina Meya Lopez, do you want to present the question by yourself? If you can, Juho, release the mute. Carolina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, I wanted to know if the people that are making the regulations or laws about AI are, if they're properly advised. Like sometimes I know lawyers don't know anything about technologies, or they don't even know what is a bit. So are they advised on making these laws so that laws can make sense, even on a technical level?
Yeah, I think that's a super important question, and probably no full answer to that one. I know that in Finland, at least, like there, like we are really proud of the elements of AI course and how that has been taken, I believe, by the parliament as well, and sort of like there has been like a lot of attempts to educate our decision makers, lawmakers about this, about the technical side of AI. I know there is like so many people at the moment have been working like full speed on trying to educate also decision makers, lawmakers about the ethical implications and how to address those. So I see a lot of attempts there. I cannot say that this is something that is done or like well handled, but I see a lot of activity there, and also like interest and recognition also from the authorities' perspective that lawmakers' perspective that they will definitely need support in this one. Yeah, but it's technology, it's a complex space. Technology regulation is really challenging space. That's probably the reason also why EU hasn't been faster in coming up with these kind of like technology regulations specifically for the AI, because there is they know that they need to know enough, and like it's a very complex thing, so better not to be too fast in addressing that.
Hey, thank you very much, Meeri. Excellent presentation, and thank you also for answering these questions. And there are some questions still in chat if you have time to answer. Thank you, everybody, for attending this week once again, and we are continuing in the same place, same time next week. We have two excellent lectures once again. Katja Toropainen, and her title of her lecture is Why Diversity and Inclusion Matter in Technology and How to Advance It. And then the second lecturer of next week is Kirsi Kokko. Kirsi is the head of Digital Trust Program in Business Finland, and her title is Digital Trust for Safe, Secure and Prosperous Societies. So thank you all, stay healthy, and we will see and hear in 1 week.